Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, gathering the magic, spidering the man, quinning the Harley, and other things are happening. It's a major spoiler-palooza as we talk Turkey, Greece, the Wheel of Commerce, and Rwanda over yonder. And we check out Absolute Batman. Join Unlimited Steven, Complete Rodrigo, and Unmitigated Matthew as the Absolute Major Spoilers podcast is on the unadulterated air.
Welcome to issue 1159 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you for downloading and checking us out this week. I had somebody reach out to me today and say, hey, I haven't seen the show updated on the Apple Podcast, etc. And as a reminder, we have moved to our new website, majorspoilers.substack.com. I have gone through and I have done all of the redirects for the shows that we are keeping. And that so the Major Spoilers Plus Network area shows that is gone now. We've only got the 4 individual shows. If you are a subscriber of this show only and you haven't been getting updates, first of all, how are you listening to this? Second of all, you may have to unsubscribe and resubscribe. But everything from what Apple and Libsyn and my own sources are showing is that everything is working just fine. Just sometimes little hiccups happen. So go check that out there. Speaking of Absolute Batman, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the show. And also there is a newsletter that's going out on Wednesday morning, probably already out by the time you're listening to this, over at majorspoilers.substack.com. That gives you a little bit more information about Absolute Batman and how that series did in 2025. But first, we got our first look of Jason Momoa in his full Lobo gear. Rodrigo, what did you think?
I thought he looked good.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm not sure what Lobo's going to do in that movie, having read
the source
material, but yeah.
He's going to kick some bastages. Matthew, what'd you think of Jason Momoa as the Lobo?
I feel like it is one of those instances of almost perfect, like almost note perfect, exactly like the comic casting.
Yeah.
Which worries me because every time we get that, it ends up not being good on the screen because, looking like the character doesn't necessarily mean you are the character. That said, Momoa is living Lobo. I just want somebody to question why he looks like Arthur. Then again, I don't know if Arthur exists after the...
I don't think he does in this universe.
I mean, he was retconned away in Peacemaker Season 2.
Yeah, so see? All right, if you have comments about the Lobo's look, head over to our Discord server. You can join the Major Spoilers Discord server absolutely free. Jump into the Major Spoilers channel or the movie channel. We've got one of them too. And talk to your heart's content about Jason Momoa as Lobo. How about we do some reviews?
All right.
Matthew, what do you got this week? Harley Quinn and Elvira number 4. This is over at Dynamite Entertainment. This is one of those big crossover synergy things that are happening all over the place in 2025 and 2026. How did this one play out for you?
First off, point of order, I feel really bad that I did not realize that Romero Rodrigo was right there. And I apologize to our bilingual spoilerheads. Secondly, Harley Quinn X Elvira number 4, written by Palmiotti and Connor. So Amanda Connor, Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Amanda Connor and Juan Samu, is fun, as you'd expect a book with these main characters to be. They are both wisecrackers, fourth wall breakers. They're both overtly sexual in some of their best jokes. And the story begins with Harley dreaming that she's at the Hall of Justice and Alfred is giving her bat tacos. And then we cut to her in real life where she and Elvira and a werewolf are in bed together. Now, how they got there is a question to ask the elephant in Groucho's pajamas. However, the story goes from there, where Elvira and Harley need a bath. So we do get the moment where they're wandering around a Transylvanian castle looking for something to take a bath in. It ends up being a bucket that where they're pretty sure used to be used to boil people and steal their blood. As the story goes on, we do get more of the double entendres. There's an invisible character running around and a fight sequence where I love it. Both women are naked. There is nothing more amazing to me than a story where, oh no, we've ripped off the character's costume. They don't care. They're going to have a fight. That's kind of cool. And as they start coming to terms with the fact that Dracula's wives don't like them, the story starts getting really interesting. And I don't want to spoiler anything. All I'm going to say is that on the very last page, a giant stone head crashes down to earth, and someone who is very clearly Sean Connery in Lederhosen leans out and goes, "Come with me if you want to live." Yes, my friends, it is Vartox. The Vartox is here, which is why I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the first 3 issues, and I'm also going to pick up issue 5. Harley Quinn x Elvira, times Elvira with Elvira, number 4. 3 slices of meatloaf. It is funny. It is beautifully drawn. It is off color. It is raunchy. It is a lot of fun. And I honestly feel like I'm surprised that I did not recognize that this was happening until issue 4. I really wish I'd been from the beginning. Yeah.
This is the unfortunate side. This is the unfortunate side, right? Because you get Batman, Deadpool, Deadpool, Batman, big to do. Just sells out phenomenally worldwide in 2025. And people are going crazy for it. We see Godzilla all over the place in 2025. Mm-hmm. Everybody is crossing over with Godzilla. We see, what was the other big? We see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers continue to do their dance. There's like company crossovers left and right through 2025. And yet this one went under so many people's radars.
Right. And it was,
it didn't go under my radar because I was getting all this stuff ahead of time, but
true.
And then also because I follow Jimmy Palmiotti on socials, and so I got to see him promoting it and talking about it. But I was just really surprised that more people weren't rushing to this comic. Now, I do believe there has been, I could be wrong, somebody can check me on this, but I do believe like the first issue already went back for a reprint, so that's good. But I'm just really surprised that especially with Amanda Connor's art, which is just so perfect for anything Harley Quinn and Elvira, that more people weren't all over this and talking about it since issue 1. Because I think issue 1 they made Dracula for some reason.
Yes, Dracula is in this, and Dracula is a very henpecked husband with his 3 very, very angry, tired, now feminist vampire wives. But
yeah.
I love this not just because she's my second cousin.
Yeah. Out this week from Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man Annual 2026. And this is a team up between Spider-Man and the new character Rapid. Rapid has the ability to slow down or stop time completely. And Rapid is trying to get a feel for how to be a hero and do all the other things that he has to do in his life, when suddenly Spider-Man is basically sucked into a real life Twitch stream by, what is this character's name? I forget. SCREWBALL. And is forced to do some life and death stuff. And Rapid is there, so he might as well go along and learn. And throughout the process, people first start hating Rapid, and then they start liking him. And then Spider-Man has to jump onto the stream and get the crowd to cheer for Rapid. It's interesting. I'm not super familiar with Rapid. I know he's appeared one other place. But the story is oddly preachy. Like, it's weird that it's like, come on, guys, everybody's got to lend a hand every once in a while. How about we all help Rapid out? Yay, let's help Rapid. Rapid is cool. Don't forget, everybody, with great powers come greater responsibilities. Yeah, we understand that this guy's just trying to do his job. We should do our jobs, too. And I was just like, wow, this is weirdly preachy. Even though a lot of times comic books can come off this way. But this one just really surprised me a lot in how it leaned into that. Of course, the good guys win the day, and it's not that big of a deal. It has no bearing in any greater storytelling going on in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. There is a little short backup story, a couple of pages, 4 or 5 pages, maybe 8 pages. That is that teaser for, hey, this is coming down the pipe, where Hobgoblin and some other bad guys, Strike, are getting to team up to do something bad in New York City. What will Spider-Man do? Find out in the next Spider-Man issue. It was okay. The art was very nice. The color is very, very pretty. The story is fine. If you're looking for a very non-committal Spider-Man story, this is it. Amazing Spider-Man Annual 2026. 3 slices of meatloaf from me. You can go and get both the Harley Quinn and the Amazing Spider-Man books via our Amazon affiliate links. Link in the show notes. A little bit comes back our way. Not very much. Thank you, Jeff Bezos. How else is he going to have to pay for that Melania documentary? What were you going to say, Matthew?
I was going to ask if I'd understand it if I hadn't read issues 1 through 2025.
Yeah, you could. You really could. Because there's, Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider.
He did?
Became the
Is
amazing.
He okay?
Well, only if you've read the first 15 issues of Amazing Fantasy will you understand that part. But
point of order, there's only one issue of Amazing Fantasy.
Sorry.
The first 14 issues are just called
Rodrigo,
Amazing.
What's going on in the world of magic besides the fact that Hasbro is getting sued by their shareholders, by their investors?
Yeah.
A group of investors that are alleging that Hasbro CEO Chris Cox
misrepresented
the company
stuff
and overprinted all of the magic cards to where it's basically future resale value is almost worthless on the cards.
Yeah, that's kind of complex. It's a complicated situation because so I'll bring this around. So there are 2 things that were brought up during that call that were big selling points. One of them is Secret Lair, and the other one is Universes Beyond. Secret Lair are these art cards that sometimes are brand new, sometimes are versions of old Magic cards that just have like a brand new, super cool treatment. But a lot of Secret Lairs and all of Universes Beyond are using outside IPs. So the highest selling Magic the Gathering set ever now is Final Fantasy, which is an outside IP. And that's what the Universes Beyond thing is. It's bringing outside IPs into normal Magic play, basically. So anyway, that leads us to Lorwyn Eclipse, what they call a Universes Within, that is to say, one of Magic's properties, one of Magic's original properties, that got booted from the end of last year to the beginning of this year because I think either because they wanted to do the Avatar set earlier or because they wanted to throw in the Spider-Man set. I think that's what happened is they turned the Spider-Man set into a large set and then it basically pushed a bunch of stuff back. So we finally got it, right? We were supposed to get it last year, getting it this year. Lorwyn Eclipse is a return to fan favorite plain Lorwyn, but also a return that took 20 years because apparently Lorwyn was one of the worst selling sets ever for Magic, right?
Really?
Especially if you count the whole Lorwyn Shadowmoor super block. It just did not sell that well. However, another set that didn't sell very well was Kamigawa, and they, a few years ago, went back to Kamigawa, the brand new thing, and it sold very well at the time. One of the highest selling sets for Magic. So the return to Lorwyn, I guess, as you brought up the sort of the meta text of what's been happening with Magic, has a lot of eyeballs on it for a lot of reasons. One, it came out much earlier in the year than sets normally do, because now Magic is trying to do more sets per year. So normally we wouldn't get a set like this early in January. Usually, I think early February is the earliest. That's one. Two is a return to a very old plane, and one that has, in a lot of ways, sort of design-wise, been cannibalized by other planes. There's a lot of Eldraine that comes from Lorwyn. There's a lot of like Bloomburrow that comes from Lorwyn. So a return to Lorwyn had to kind of be something that was different from the things that have come from it, right?
Yeah.
And then also because of the Universes Beyond thing, it's a lot of people believe it's kind of like make or break for Magic's original IPs to stand on their own, right? And there's this idea that if they don't perform within probably a couple of years, we'd just be seeing Universes Beyond, right? Like the slate of Magic stuff would be just Ninja Turtles, Star Trek, Marvel Heroes, so on and so forth, right? And no Magic exclusive IPs afterwards. So I had a look at the set. I actually got a chance to play in a couple of limited tourneys online, and I'm happy to report that it's very good. It's a fun set. If you're just playing with the cards from the set, I think a lot of people are saying that it's a little underpowered, but I also think that like there's a lot of synergies that I think people probably haven't found yet. The most popular thing to play within Magic the Gathering is Commander. That's what most people are playing.
Yeah.
But I don't play Commander, so I couldn't tell you necessarily how strong the Commanders are. I'm not familiar with the meta because I don't play it.
Yeah.
So what it's trying to do, which is to sort of do these return to this like type-based creature decks, right? So you want your creature deck to be, or your deck to be all goblins or all elves or all merfolk or all tree folk or whatever. It succeeds in that in a way that like the old Lorwyn didn't, because the old Lorwyn was really trying to do a lot of like just kind of like power and toughness increases with like some other stuff. This one is kind of like, okay, you have this elf deck, but your Lorwyn elf deck cares about your elves in the graveyard, right? It's like you want to have dead elves or elves that you discarded so that they can power up your other spells and your other elves through being in the graveyard, right? So it's kind of stuff like that where it's like it's not just like this color has this critter, but also there's sort of this like secondary strategy, right? Merfolk want to become tapped, so you can tap them by attacking, but if you have another way of tapping them that's actually safer, you can still get the benefits out of it. So it gets you thinking like, what am I going to do with this Merfolk? Am I going to put him in a vehicle? Is he going to crew a space station? Because they have vehicles and space stations in Magic now. Jump back in, pay attention. But yeah, so I found that to be a lot of fun. It's fun to sort of play with them in Constructed, and it was a lot of fun in Draft. So I'll give it 4 slices of meatloaf. I think, like anything else, there's something about modern Magic sets, and I'm not saying this like as an old fogey. I mean, like literally there's like fewer cards in a pack.
Oh, really?
Right? And there's like, yeah, and like they've changed the way that the packs work, like how many rares and stuff are in them. Like sometimes there's more than one rare, but I don't know. It's just like, yeah, right. And you'd be like, oh, well, that's good. It's like, yeah, but it messes with the system, right? It changes things, and that's more of like a structural thing that I don't like about Magic right now, and it kind of doesn't have anything to do with Lorwyn, but because I went all in on Lorwyn, it just keeps coming up for me. So old fogies, you'll like the return to Lorwyn for all the stuff that you liked about original Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. And you might not like what if you're getting back into Magic right now because you were playing it back in 2006 or whenever Lorwyn came out. You might not like the way that Magic structurally exists now, which has kind of nothing to do with the cards and the mechanics and the characters themselves.
Yeah. Going back to this lawsuit, I just think it's somewhat ironic that someone who is speculating by buying stock into a company that trades on speculation is kind of,
and that's why I kind of don't care about it, right? Yeah. It's like Magic. It's like, how do you not misrepresent yourself in something like that, right? If you're like, well, this is what we're expecting to happen, and then it doesn't happen, or you do some kind of like wacky shenanigans to get it to happen or to look a certain way, right? It's like we see it with everything. We see it with like comic books, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah. I think this
Marvel was like super duper overprinting comics for a while, and it was like having like downstream impacts to like comic book shops and retailers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem is that Magic is the only game in town, right? There are other TCGs, but Magic is the biggest, the most popular, the one that people are coming to play. Really, other than Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, which are still which are contenders. Like Pokemon,
Yeah,
I think is
I
a
would
bigger
say
game
probably number
worldwide,
two,
but in the
right?
United States,
Yeah.
yeah, but in the United States, it's Magic.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it is really funny to just as like I look at those news and I'm like, this is a problem for rich people. Like I don't like I'm not like I don't know if in the end I as a consumer I'm going to lose out on something. I probably am. It's probably going to have downstream effects for me. But it's just funny to be like a market speculator. I'm mad at you because you threw off my market speculation.
Yeah. I mean, downstream for you, maybe the company is forced to produce less. Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Maybe they produce only 2 sets a year. Or
the problem is that you never know what the impacts are going to be because they're like before it gets to you, there's some galaxy brain exec there who is like, hey, what if we did this ridiculous thing instead? And it just like knocks everything out of balance, right? If they just let it ride and they were like, okay, well, I guess we're cutting back, so there's going to be less product, blah blah blah. That'd be fine. But a lot of the time they don't because there's a guy in there who's like, oh, I know. I'm going to do this thing that has never worked this time, and this time it will work.
I mean, sometimes fetch does happen. Not really, but
sure.
So, well, I guess that goes into this idea of you do have to constantly evolve and change things, right? And I kind of see this with video games in that, let's say you play, Final Fantasy. I was watching a YouTube video about the history of all the different Final Fantasies. And as you go through the history of the Final Fantasies, it's like every fantasy release, they have to include some new mechanic. And it's like, do you have to include some mechanic? I mean, if everything was working fine before, can't you just tell me a really cool story with the mechanics I already know so that I can enjoy the best of both worlds? No, we have to add something new or change something completely. And I think that's what happens with a lot of products. And we're going to talk about one of those big changes here in just a moment. But I think that it's one of those things that are baked into any kind of new release, new product, new innovation that a company has to do in order to succeed. Because if every release of Magic were the same as the one before, most people would get very quickly tired of it. But if someone says,
sure,
but what if we had space stations and steam mobiles?
Oh, yeah.
Spider-Man.
I don't, some of that stuff is...
Or double-sided cards.
You kind of, when you get into something, you like forge a pact with that demon, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to get into Doctor Who and here are my expectations of Doctor Who. You shake hands. And then when somebody comes out and says, actually, you can have a turbo double split doctor and have 2 doctors at once. Like, you might be like, wait a minute, this violates what I expect from Doctor Who, right? And you might fall out because of that. Like, that kind of happened to me with double-faced cards, as you brought up.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for, like, entrenched Magic nerds. Like, a lot of them didn't like it. But now for me, double-faced cards were like such a huge split. Not to be confused with split cards, of course. Were such a huge change in direction, or such a big sort of like technological change that like now basically Magic can't do anything that bothers me, right? Like some people are bothered by vehicles or space stations. They're like, I don't want sci-fi in my Magic or whatever. And I'm like, no, the moment that you said like the back of the card, it doesn't have to look like a Magic card, like it's all open, right? You might as well just explore what can be done, right? The part of the thing is that games are art, right? And the same way that you want people to innovate in art and change things up and make new and interesting things, the same thing is true in games, and through that change and innovation and the artistic process, right? Not just the like soulless marketing process that, granted, they're also subject to video games and card games
and comic
and
books
all
and
this stuff.
everything else. Yeah.
And comic books and TVs and movies, there is also like that artistic process happening, sometimes despite of it, sometimes weirdly fueled by it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It is interesting what you get. And if you're like me and you've been super into Magic and then you kind of fell out for a while and now you're kind of just like sort of monitoring to see what you like it's kind of all good for me, but I can see some worrying trends, and I can see why people are annoyed or bothered at certain things about Magic, because it does feel like there was a contract that Magic is now violating.
Yeah. On the other hand, sometimes you have to do something different in order to bring new people in, right? A week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, maybe, over on the Major Spoilers new home, majorspoilers.substack.com, I wrote an article about swinging for the fences. And sometimes you have to take a big swing in order to bring in the new group of people who will sustain and carry your card game, your comic book, your video game series onward, right? You can't always rely on the same base. And I pointed out that Skybound Entertainment was perfect with this, with their G.I. Joe, Transformers, Void Rivals universe, the Energon universe, because that was, it was the same but different than the traditional G.I. Joe Real American Hero that Larry Hama had been doing since forever and a day. And it was different enough and welcoming enough that new readers, myself, suddenly are like, hey, I like reading G.I. Joe. I want to see what happens when Roadblock appears this week in the pages of G.I. Joe number 18. This is something that excites me. Other times you may have to sit there and go, hey, we can spin off and create a new label. Or, in the case of DC Comics, we can create an entire different universe featuring the same characters that people know, but one little thing has been altered in their universe, and that has radically changed how we look at Batman, Superman, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman. In fact, we're going to be looking at all of those characters this year as we explore the absolute universe over at DC Comics, a company that has swung for the fences and, again, based on the numbers, was a huge hit in 2025. When you look at the top 50 comics, and I talk about this in the new newsletter that you can read now over at majorspoilers.substack.com. You can sign up, get it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, absolutely free. But in it, in the top 50 comics of 2025, how many of them were in the absolute category? Absolute Wonder Woman, absolute Batman, absolute Superman, etc. How many of those top 50 comics were in the absolute category? You guys want to take a guess, Matthew?
Can I just ask for clarification real quick?
Yeah.
That's individual sales
issues
of an individual issue?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you a little hint. I'll give you a little hint. Marvel Comics only had, I think, 4 or 5 individual issues hit the top 25 comics, or in the top 50 comics in 2025. One of them being the Deadpool Batman crossover.
Nice.
Matthew, you want to guess?
Yeah, I'm gonna guess 6.
Okay, 6 absolute titles. 40 of the top 50 comics sold in 2025 were absolute titles.
Jumping fish hooks.
That is amazing.
Absolute Batman number 1, as of this recording, is in its 10th printing. That tells you something about how people are reacting to this absolute universe. Now, some people are sitting there going, what's the absolute universe? Is this like Ultimate Comics? Matthew, what's going on? Give us the broad overview of absolute DC.
Okay, so am I free to spoiler?
Yeah, I mean, this is a spoiler show. Okay. These comics have been out for, a while now.
Yeah. Okay, so the absolute universe takes place. I can't remember if they've given it a number, but I know that they were calling it Earth Alpha or Alpha Earth.
Is it? Oh, it's
But
not Alpha.
essentially-
I thought it was Omega, but whatever.
Alpha.
Earth Sigma. Oh, 6-7. Sorry. I'm done.
Anyway, okay. So here's the deal.
Can't wait.
Behind
We're going to get so close to issue 1167, and I'm just going to keep dropping that all throughout the entire episode. So anyway, what's going on in the Absolute Universe? Why is everything so different?
Behind the scenes. Okay, so here's the whole thing. Behind the scenes, there are multiverses within multiverses. There's the multiverse, the omniverse, the dark universe, the dark multiverse. One of those included a world called Earth Alpha. Earth Alpha was influenced by the dying dark side of New Genesis and or Apocalypse. Point of order must be very, very important. According to current theology, there's only one dark side throughout all of the multiversi. This dark side influenced a world where the DC characters, who your Supermans, your Batmans, your Flashes, are in chaos and terrible things are happening to them and they're being manipulated. And so if you say to yourself, hey, what would Superman be like if he didn't have a cape and also was, kind of a crazy, wacky rebel? Or what would the Flash be like if he accidentally got his powers and then he didn't necessarily have all of his powers and then he has to freak out and run around, and also there's a big handsome mirror master?
Or what if Wonder Woman was not raised on Themyscira but was raised by who is it? Not Hera, but the bad person of the
right
Wonder Woman mythos.
Right. So they've taken away the humanizing element of Superman's parents. They've taken away Diana being raised in a loving world of Amazons. And they've taken away Bruce Wayne being the spoiled rich boy who travels the world to become a super genius science ninja. And instead, they've had to basically dark-sided it up.
Yeah.
And so Absolute Batman is the story of what happens when Batman does not have all the resources that traditionally have made him Batman, but he's 7'9" tall and built like a brick outhouse.
Yeah, like 640 pounds.
Yes.
Just he's all muscle, right? And so we find out in this first volume, The Zoo, that he's in Gotham City. His father died. His father was a teacher. He died basically trying to save a bunch of school kids at a shooting at a zoo. Bruce has always been fascinated by bats. He's also a very smart kind of engineer kid. So he's kind of understands how to make things big using small, lightweight spaces, kind of like a bat folds its wings. Hint, hint, spoiler, spoiler. And his mother is still alive. And he has gone on and earned multiple degrees in engineering and design and all of this other stuff. And he has come back to Gotham City, and he has worked in basically every department of Gotham City to really figure out how the city works. And right now he's employed as an engineer while the city is being overrun by these characters in masks. And they, in this universe, you're just killing people left and right. In fact, the people that are part of this gang, they are getting money paid to them for doing different crimes. You kill a woman, you get so much money. You killed a child, you get this much money. You rob a bank, you get this much money. You kill the chief of police, you get $1 million. In this world, the mayor is Jim Gordon. In this world, Alfred is part of some super secret spy organization that has been sent to Gotham to spy on what this criminal organization is doing and also kind of keeping tabs on what this Batman fellow is doing. Meanwhile, Batman is friends with, or I should say Bruce Wayne, is friends with people who will become Killer Croc, the Penguin, the Riddler, all of the villains Batman is friends with because they've been childhood friends since the beginning.
They all grew up in the same, was it an orphanage?
Crime Alley. I think they all grew up in Crime Alley. Well, Bruce wouldn't have grown up in an orphanage because he lived with his mother.
Yeah, they just all went to school together.
Yeah.
In Crime Alley, yeah.
You
can't say Crime Alley. I think it's a minor curse word, isn't it?
No, I mean, maybe to Bruce, but I will say that the first issue...
No, Crime Alley is a contested location between Russia and somewhere else. You're thinking of... No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
All right, that was a good one. I will give you applause for that. There will be no crickets chirping for that.
Hey,
but there is, I mean, it is fascinating when we open this story and we see this motorcycle riding into town, and it's a pretty cool Tetsuo motorcycle or a Canada motorcycle. Right. And, I am back in my city. This is my place. I enjoy tea. And then they take the helmet off, and it's like, my name is Alfred. This is my city. I hate it here. Right. And it's like, what? And I was just like, okay, from that minute on, I was like, what is going on in this book?
Yeah. And I don't remember why, but I had one of my psychic visions, and chose to review Absolute Batman #1 when it came out. And it may have, I'm not promising, but it may have been a day of review, which for me is unusual. Nonetheless, when I read it, I was just like, oh. Because when you look at, I've said many times on this show, and I say in general parlance, when we talk about alternate universes, as a general rule, the thought process of the readers, and to a lesser degree the editorial, is alternate universes don't matter. You can, we're not having fun with the ultimate universe anymore. We're going to blow it up. We're going to take the 3 elements that work, and we're going to stick them on Earth 616.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they do it. Earth 2 in the New 52 was blown up twice. They destroyed Earth 2. They all moved to this new planet in the giant space arcs, and then that planet got destroyed in another crossover.
Yeah.
We're literally at a point where most of the time when an alternate version of a character debuts, unless the title of the story is Spider-Verse or something Crisis : something Darkseid, you probably aren't going to see a whole lot of that universe being stable, being crafted from the bottom up. And Absolute Batman really feels like a story crafted from the bottom up. We're creating this world. We've taken this premise that Darkseid had an influence, and instead of a world where everyone's grown up with a sun-powered super god in a red cape saving people, that, we're all influenced by a rocky-faced guy in a leather miniskirt, and that makes all of our lives suck because we have to imagine Darkseid in a miniskirt. But that's for later. We'll get back to that. But when I finished issue 1, I said to myself, this is going to be a smash because you hated it. And that
I didn't hate it. I loved it.
This is the thing. I read issue 1. I said to myself, this is an amazing, well-written, well-drawn comic. It is a take on a really, really well-known character that literally undermines everything. And it has killer ideas, killer visuals. His bat symbol is an axe that he can peel off his chest and chop your head off with. And I'm like, okay, that's amazing.
Or when you get to, the Batmobile, when Alfred confronts Batman, and, they're fighting the, whatever they are, the zoo, or what are they called? The
party animals.
The party animals, yeah. And he's sliding down the skyscraper, and he's in there, and Alfred's like, hey, we better get away from here. Where's your vehicle? And Batman's like, you're standing in it. And you turn the page, and it's this, giant dump truck that's all decked out with bat symbols, and it's running people over and blowing stuff up. And it's like, Scott Snyder does one thing really well, and that is this idea of over-the-top, crazy ideas set to any heavy metal station in the country. And that's what he writes his books on. Death metal was like that, very much so. And this is kind of like that as well. How crazy can I make this, but still make it have some semblance of believability? Is that what you get out of this, Rodrigo, or no?
I mean, sure. I think it's a lot of big swings, but if you take a step back, right, it's like everything about Batman as we know him before is already ridiculous. Like
Mm-hmm.
an axe that like a two-part axe that comes out of his costume is not actually wackier than a batarang. A batarang is actually very wacky. So, just or a cape that like extends out and lets him walk around. It's like that's weird. It looks weird, and part of the reason I think for it is that it looks weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not any crazier than any of the other stuff we've seen Batman have before.
Or his ears turn into blades, knives, so he can stab
Right.
you. Or that he reconfigured Alfred's super special exclusive gun, so it only fires like these little bat pellets into your face.
Tiny batarangs.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And then you get presented with, on the flip side of that, Bruce Wayne as a human having to deal with just this anger at the city for what it did to his father. Not anger at crime, but literally anger at the city and trying to come to grips with that and trying to fix it from the inside, so to speak. And being tempted, well, I shouldn't say being tempted, but willing to do things that I don't think the Batman that most people know would do. So at one point, Black Mask is like, hey, I'll give you $2 million. You leave us alone for a week. We'll leave you alone for a week. And without hesitation, Bruce is like, yeah, I'll take your $2 million. And then in the back of your mind, you're going, oh, this is how he's going to get all those incredible toys that the Joker's always talking about. But no, he turns it into the bat signal and lights it on fire to let people know that he can't be bought. And it's like, okay, that's a different take on the character than what we've probably seen before. Somebody who's willing to make maybe a little bit of compromise, but not willing to compromise who he believes he is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And also he has no love in his heart, which would be appropriate for a universe that is influenced by Darkseid, right? And Bruce Wayne, when he's a little boy, goes up in the court to confront Joe Hill, who killed his father. And instead of saying, hey, I understand everybody goes through these difficult times, Bruce Wayne is like, I hate you. I will always hate you. There's nothing that you can do to make me forgive you. And it's like, okay, this is a creepy kid.
It is, and it's also a more postmodern take on a vigilante, because there is at the core of Batman, as there is with all superhero archetypes, kind of a 30s era, we're all in this together. Hey, let's pull together. This rich kid is the best of us all. Or this kid from Smallville who grew up away from politicizing. And by the way, if you've ever been to a field in Kansas, you know damn well that farmers are the most political creatures on planet Earth. But neither here nor there. That person grows up and he comes to the big bad city and he teaches them the ways of the small town and how everything can be simpler and your morals can be black and white and we can deal with all of this. That is all a very early 20th century take.
Noble.
Very 30s and 40s, greatest generation coming together to stop the Nazi scourge or the Axis from taking over the world. And absolutely, I do not question it. I don't even look at it and say, no, this is bad. But it's there. And taking that out of Batman, but not going like, how do I put this? Image Comics of the 90s tried to do this. They tried to take away that noble core, but instead of taking it away, they just sort of inverted it and left it there so that you're like, oh, these guys are bad, but they do good things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but they're bad. This story doesn't necessarily tell us that Batman, that Bruce, this angry, hateful giant just stalking through the streets and beating people, is good or bad. He is just he's doing what he does.
Batman is
nature. Yeah, he's almost a force of nature, and that's an interesting take. That is a take that I knew people were going to adhere to and immediately go, oh, this appeals to me. This feels really solid, in the year 2024, 25, 26.
Well, and also when you look at that nature of the vigilante, he is quote unquote one of us, right? Same way with when you read the Absolute Superman books, where he is like, hey, these working conditions suck. I've been working here at this mine for all this time, and I need to use my powers to change these working conditions. It is about rising up against tyranny. These characters are about not looking down upon us as one of the oligarchs of the world, but somebody who is like, no, I work in the streets. I know these people. I'm going to fight for my city. At least that's what I get out of it. Rodrigo, what did you think of this first story?
I read this and thought to myself, this is the thing that people are flipping out about. Because I read this and I was like, this is a normal Batman story. In this story, Batman like drives a tank and runs over all kinds of stuff. I was like, yeah, that's a normal Batman story. It's like in this story, like Alfred is part of like a secret organization stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's different, but that's normal Batman stuff. Like, in this story, his dad dies and he dies in a zoo and his mom survives. And I'm like, oh yeah? How does the fact that his mom survived soften him or change him or get him to do things in any way differently than Batman ever would? And the answer is none. None at all in any way. This is a normal Batman story. Like, and if it wasn't so referential to the Dark Knight Rises, right? If it wasn't so like very clearly influenced by it, then I would say then maybe it wouldn't be so stark. But the Dark Knight Rises is how we've been doing Batman since it came out in 1989 or whenever, right?
To an extent, I mean, but the problem is that DC has tried to reboot its own universe 2 or 3 times since then. Sure. And while you're correct in saying that, yes, everything that makes Batman is here, right?
Yeah.
That's not the only thing that's different is he's not rich. And that is the one thing that if you take away all of his money, what is he going to become?
Right. The one thing that's different is this absolves them of like the implicit absolves them of the I hate to use these many words back to back, but the implicit complicitness of the Wayne family in the state of Gotham.
Right. You're absolutely
because
right.
As a millionaire and coming from a family of millionaires, there's a good chance that the reason why Gotham is a cesspool is because of them, because of these millionaires.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
the Court of
all
Owls
that
addresses
does
that. The Bridges of Gotham storyline addresses that.
All that does is absolve Batman of that. But it's like, okay, well, he's a working class Batman. How does that change things? He no longer has access to gadgets. Wait, let me check. No, he has tons of gadgets. He has tons of computers. He can surveil the whole city. He can build a tank inside some building, I guess, because no one would ever check if there's a tank in that building.
I mean, it's under construction, so.
Yeah, so it's like, yes, he knows the city really well. And it's like, okay, so he knows where to hide this stuff. But like, seriously, who has time to do that while holding a full-time job? And the problem with how do you make a working class Batman is if you actually follow the idea of a working class superhero, at the end, he's wearing red tights and swinging around, right? Like, if you have a working class superhero, he very quickly turns into Spider-Man. Like, you can have a working class Batman, but a working class Batman is kind of hinted at this in that he needs to lean on his like circle of friends to do things. Like that's about the only thing where I thought this Batman is slightly different because every other Batman tries to 100% go it alone. But the moment that he doesn't need their help, he goes it alone anyway. Doesn't take any of their advice, only their help, right? So he's not influenced by them. He's kind of just only using them. Like I read this and I was like, this is a normal Batman story. Like there's nothing here that's actually different, right? When you take all the Batman stories that we've ever read on this show, like everything that's here except chest emblem is an axe is somewhere in those pages, right? There's like,
but I think that's
at
that,
best
I mean, but
a
if you
remix.
if you look at everything that Matthew hates about the Ultimate Spider-Man, it's because it is basically telling new Spider-Man tales using everything we know about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right? The thing is that it's different enough that it welcomes new readers into that universe and gives new life to that company. A year and a half ago, if you were to say, hey, second place, barely scraping along, DC Comics, 2025 is going to be your year, everybody would have just laughed their asses off.
Sure.
But they're like, okay, how do we take that idea that people like an Ultimate Universe or they like this retelling of this story? How can we do it in a way that gets people to go, heck yeah, I want to read this, because it does feel similar, but different enough to where it is not your mom and dad's Batman, for lack of a better phrase.
Sure. And in that sense, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine as a beginning story, as that fabled jumping on point. It's absolutely fine. Just when I read it, I was expecting something very different. I wasn't expecting something specific, but I was like, what are these nerds up in a tizzy about? And when I finished reading it, I was like, what are these nerds up in a tizzy about? This is just like a normal Batman story, right? It's like, I'm not saying that it's not a good jumping on point. I'm not saying that it's a bad take on the character. I'm just saying, like, there's nothing here to me that was surprising, right? Other than sort of more ephemeral things like his mom's alive. And I'm like, it doesn't change him. Like, it really doesn't change how Batman operates.
Right.
And in fact, it so doesn't change him. His mom is in peril. And I was like, they're going to say, okay, well, the fact that one of his parents is still alive is going to we're going to put her in peril, and we'll see how Batman reacts to that. But like, he doesn't even know she's in peril.
Right.
Like, she's in peril somewhere else in the city. She gets in and out of it, like, partially because of his actions, he gets out of peril. But it doesn't even make Batman make a choice about what he wants to do or how he wants to do it. Like, again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying this is a normal Batman
What
story.
I hear you saying, Rodrigo, saying is, I need to read what happens next. Because guess what? Absolute Batman #1, even in its 10th printing, is not the #1 selling Absolute Batman title of 2025. Really. And that then leads to, well, if this is all the same, what happens next? What happens when the characters have to confront his mother's mortality? What happens when we meet a Joker that is not quite the Joker? What happens when we have to deal with the real relationship between child Selina and child Bruce? I hear you saying you want to read more of this. That's what
I would be interested to see where they go with it, and if it just ends up being more of the same. So if it changes, then
I mean, I am sure this is very much so. Again, the appeal for me for Ultimate Spider-Man and what got me into really liking Spider-Man was, hey, this is something that is approachable for me, who doesn't have to have 70 years of Spider-Man under my belt and to understand what's going on. And it's kind of retelling a lot of the same arcs that the original 616 Spider-Man stories were telling, but putting it in more of a modern day and those kinds of things. Yeah, that's a great jumping on part. And I think that you're absolutely right. There are all of the little elements of what makes Batman Batman, but let's tell it for a different audience. And let's see if we can open that door and say, come on in. The water's warm, right?
Yeah.
Because we peed in the pool.
No.
Oh, no? Okay. Matthew, what didn't you, since Rodrigo's already shared what he didn't like about this, what didn't you like about Absolute Batman? The Zoo.
I think Bazoo.
Because you gave this a 100% rating. 5 out of 5.
100% for its quality, for what it does, and what it puts together. I don't like it. And I think it probably, in this case, I will cop to being old, because when we talk about the superhero archetype, I have very definite opinions about it. And I do talk about it and think about it on a pretty much constant daily basis. And when you say, this is a book that is going to change everything, I say first, no, it's not. And second, I get what you like about it. I will not deny its quality. But when you say that this is a Batman who grew up in a world influenced by a dark side archetype, a dark side
influence, right? It's like essence, dark side's essence.
It's sort of the zeitgeist of dark side, which is too many I's and too many G's and not nearly enough umlauts. So your zeitgeist of dark side, your darkgeist, if you will, sucks. And as someone who tries to be, I think, more idealistic in the stories that I appreciate, it and absolute Superman, absolute Wonder Woman, and absolute Green Lantern to an even bigger degree are very much driven by how terrible this universe is.
Yeah.
How removing this thing has made this a crapsack, horrible world. And how these heroes now really do have to fight even harder to lift their metaphorical load. And I just feel like if you
Two on the nose,
if you're putting your thumb on the scales that hard, if you're pushing not just this is a vigilante, Spider-Man grew up, he's a young orphan, he's got no money, he's abused, he's forced to actually take advantage of himself to get money to survive. His aunt is 150,000 years old, and the person who, pays his bills hates his guts. And if he's going to continue to survive, he has to support the man that hates his guts and create that. I feel like, that's terrible. I feel like, lots of the dark universe, especially, God help us all, the Batman Who Laughs, was designed, what's the worst possible thing we can put in here? And as much as I sit here and I go, it really is cool to see this Batman who's driving a Terex Titan, who's a massive Bane-like monstrous freak, who does all of these amazing things with no emotional affect whatsoever, and is very clearly and obviously damaged by the loss of his father in a different way than he was on Earth Zero by the loss of both parents. Which, by the way, don't even get me started on DC's obsession with.
Yeah, we're not, because we're talking about this book right now.
There are, and I think I'm echoing Rodrigo when I say this, there are places that I feel like this could have gone. This maybe should have gone, that it isn't gonna. And most importantly, and I feel like I bang this drum a lot. I said this the day that they said, Spider-Man is unmasking, Peter Parker is going to be a public superhero identity. It's a closed-ended idea. The idea of a freaky masked guy going around and saving the city and maybe getting attacked by the cops, having a secret lair, having, gadgetry, all the things that he does, sneaking around and being a Batman by night, is kind of an open-ended idea. This universe is a closed-ended, and I feel like, I'm not going to be the guy who says I give it X issues or I give it X years, but I feel like there's going to come a point where, much as we saw with Ultimate Marvel, the what's different is going to have run its course, and we're going to actually start having the joke be that we're subverting expectations of absolute DC by giving us a character who is what you see in Earth Zero or Prime DC. So that's down the line. I don't have your skills as a prognosticator. I'm not necessarily a futurist.
I am going to predict right now that Scott Snyder will have said months ago, or actually about a month ago, he's already got the first 40 issues of this series planned out, and that he has it maybe as far as conceptually all the way up to issue 60, but has definitely stated that there is no planned end for the Absolute Universe. that, it's
You know
not,
who was
it's
most
not like,
surprised by the cancellation
not-
of the Ultimate
it's
Universe?
not like the current run of the Ultimate Universe, which is ending. Surprise, it's not. It's not. The Ultimate Universe is returning. Trust me on this. You should find out more on Wednesday or Thursday. That's when Marvel says they're going to make the big announcement about the Ultimate Universe. But, for Scott Snyder, who has been put in charge of the DC All-In Initiative, which is where the Absolute Universe comes from and where DC KO comes from and all of these others, for him to say, well, I've really have planned out the first 40 issues. We're going to get 40 issues of this comic book. Because that's, it's selling. And again, surprise, Absolute Batman #1 is in the top 25 best-selling comics of 2025, but Absolute Flash #1 outsold it. And we will be looking at Flash. Yeah, I think a lot of the Absolute line is really good. I like the Absolute Superman. I think a lot of other people were like, no, we'll talk about that, because we are going to be looking at all of the Absolute comics in the release that they were released. So Absolute Batman was first. We'll be looking at Absolute Wonder Woman in March, and then Absolute Superman following that. Then we have I think there's Absolute Flash after that. Let's see. There's a big long Absolute Flash. Then we get Absolute Martian Manhunter. Then we end with Absolute Green Lantern in October. Now, there have been some one-shots and other things, but we're not going to cover those. We're just looking at the first volumes of how does DC swing for the fences and relaunch a universe and make that series one of the biggest hits of 2025. I don't think that it will. I think that it'll still be very solid through 2026.
I would argue that as well. You could definitely make that argument.
Yeah, I think that we will see these issues, especially with Scott Snyder recently went on one of his streams and was talking about, and it may have been on Substack or someplace else, where he was talking about how he really hates covers, and Rodrigo echoing what you say about solicitations, because they ruin the surprise of what's coming.
Sure.
And he was like, hey, something big is coming up with, I think it's issue 19 of Absolute Batman. And he goes, the solicitation and the cover totally spoil everything that's coming out for that thing. And he's like, we have to sit down and figure out how do we prevent that from happening, because part of the fun is going up and picking up that issue on New Comic Book Day, opening it up and saying, oh my God, this is happening. And so I think we'll see the series run strong, but I also think that because of the success of this series, and I don't mean just Batman, but I think we're going to see DC continue to try different things and be very open to trying different things, as opposed to, no, we can only do this one thing because this one thing works for us. And what they're realizing is, maybe we can try different things. Maybe we shouldn't have killed that DC Inc. and that DC Kids initiative before it got off the ground 10 years ago. And maybe we would be rolling in preteens. Maybe we would have so many preteens being fans of our comic books that they would transition to the older titles.
There you go.
Sure.
And so I think that is, looking at these numbers, that's what I think is going to happen with DC in 2026. They're going to really re-examine how they're doing. I think that the success of the Absolute Universe is also going to impact how Marvel does comics in 2026. Look at the previous announcement that we're ending the Ultimate Universe. Nope, sorry. It's still sticking around after we take care of the Master. I think that is part of a reaction to the success of the Absolute Universe. And I think that, again, Marvel only had like 6 titles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 8 titles, 7 titles in the top 25 of all of 25. Of all of the issues sold, it only had 7 titles. Image had 1. It came in at number 3. It was the one that was released towards the end of the year, the Invincible Universe Battle Beast #1, which was the blind bag variant cover that they did with that. And then there is one that I'm keen on picking up from Keen Spot Comics. Mark Spears, what is it called? Mark Spears Monsters. The Monster and the Wolf #1 was came in at number 29, best-selling comic of 2025. So I think you look at Marvel and you're like, what are we doing? So bottom line for me, Absolute Batman Volume 1, definitely worth picking up, if for nothing else, just to see how DC is taking a concept of an alternate universe without just directly copying a Silver or Golden Age, but tweaking it enough to where it's the same but different. And I think that's worth checking out. Rodrigo, bottom line for you.
Don't confuse my insistence that this is a normal Batman book for me saying that this is bad. It's a perfectly fine, fun starting issue for Batman. It asks some interesting questions. Maybe it doesn't answer all of them, but it is ongoing, so maybe it'll answer them later.
Buy it, borrow it, skip it.
Borrow it.
Okay, Matthew?
I think in the biggest sense, this is what New 52 Batman ideally should have been. And
yes, I would agree with you.
I don't like it. It's not for me. It is an excellent comic book. It is well drawn. It is well written. And it's just not for me. I would say that definitely it's worth checking out. I would say that 7 years from now, we're probably going to be looking back at the golden age of absolute DC and going, boy, it's a good thing that Marvel didn't learn all the wrong lessons. But I also feel like when you're dealing with a concept as elastic as Batman, you can kind of get away with anything. Same thing with your Spider-Man, as we've seen with the Spider-Verse, millions of Spider-Men who do different spidery things. So if you've heard about how this is crazy and different and it's unlike anything you've ever seen before, just remember that it's one of the rare times since the DC universe has done this over and over since 1958 that the fans aren't immediately up in arms and screaming, but in fact are cheering for it. So even if I don't like it, I like the fact that fans are looking at it and giving it a chance and not going, this is different. They changed it. Now it sucks.
Yeah. So buy it, skip it, borrow it?
Definitely borrow it. I wouldn't buy it because they're like $5 an issue, but you know.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up for this issue. Thanks so much for listening. If you found value in the show, we would love for you to join our Patreon, where you can find even more fun, including the Major Spoilers Podcast pre-show, where we talk about a certain movie that's come out. We talk about the death of a certain artist and a whole lot more. You can find that at patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Next time on the Major Spoilers Podcast, we are going to go back to an old friend who we haven't seen in a long time when we go and visit Astro City Volume 8. Next time on the Major Spoilers Podcast. Why? Because we know that you love comics. We do too. And we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, he kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm starting dark raven wrist like a man of iron. I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Yeah, yeah, yeah! What a major spoiler! Whoa, 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 whoa! What a major spoiler!
This podcast is copyright 2026 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.